Now let's look at exclusion, okay, which is исключение. Achieving ethnic homogeneity is also attained when the host society refuses to permit another group entrance because that group is perceived as a threat to the society's basic social institutions. Now let's say if some Western European country believes that they should control the immigration of ethnic minorities from outside of European Union, then this could mean that they are subscribing to the policy of exclusion. So all their immigration legislation will be based on this policy of exclusion. That's because they fear that the ethnic migrants, the minorities, they will destabilize social order in their societies. They will heavily depend on the social benefits of those host countries. They will spoil and destroy the social fabric, the culture of the host society, right? Because of these fears, some of the world's most advanced countries erect very, powerful mechanisms against ethnic migrants. So when countries have such policies that refuse to admit culturally different groups, we call these as a policy of exclusion. Oppression. Oppression in Russian is гонение, okay, репрессии. Oppression involves the exploitation of minority group by excluding it from equal participation in the society. So in this respect, it closely resembles what direct expulsion is all about as well. So a system of oppression accepts the existence of minorities, but subjugates them and confines them to inferior social positions. Think of this situation. Some society, some country wouldn't let representatives of some ethnic minority occupy very important positions in the government or in the private sector. If they say that, the minorities, the ethnic minorities have a right only to do the menial job, such as they can only work as waiters in the restaurants or garbage collectors, bus drivers, tax collectors, and this sort of very menial factory workers, this could mean that the government is really oppressing the minorities. The majority group uses its power to maintain its access to valued resources in a system of social inequality. So they erect intentionally, a system of inequality to keep the ethnic minorities away from the sources of respect, prestige and power. A classic example of oppression is the South African system of apartheid, or separate development, which functions to maintain the privileged positions of the whites. All right, this is when the blacks were isolated from occupying very important positions in the society. The blacks who live in the South Africa. In other words, the South African, society was dominated by the whites. Next pattern of interaction between the majority and the minorities is the so-called assimilation. Now, the Russian word for assimilation is exactly the same as it is in English, assimiляция. Assimilation involves efforts to integrate or incorporate a group into the mainstream of society. The objective of assimilation is a homogeneous society. So with the policy of assimilation, what the host countries are trying to do is they want to make the ethnic minorities forget or give up their, ethnic, their unique cultures, their languages, their beliefs, their ideologies, or even religions. Okay, so the very basic promise and objective, the goal of assimilation, is to make the ethnic migrants join the majority. Okay, so they want them to basically become part of the majority group by making, let's say, the Syrians in France or in Germany forget that they're coming from Syria, forget about their culture, forget about their history. They want them to adopt a German, a French culture, okay, a new way of thinking, a new way of life. Now, policy of assimilation is usually achieved via two routes. The first is Anglo-conformity, which assumes that ethnic minority should give up their distinctive characteristics and adopt those of the dominant group. You have no other option but to basically give up your cultural identity if you wish to stay in the home country, in the host country. The minority group must conform to the values and lifestyle of the dominant group if they want to achieve positions of prestige in the society. If you want to live in this country, if you want to build a good career, if you want to have a right to free healthcare and free education, I'm sorry guys, but you must speak German, you must speak French, you must live like all the French and the German people do. If not, we'll have to ask you to leave the country. Okay, it's simple as that. The melting pot, another scenario for assimilation, sees ethnic differences as being lost in the creation of new society. So in this case, okay, I think the best example is the United States of America. You have lots of different ethnic groups living there. And as a result of that, they all create one universal culture, one common universal ideology, which becomes like an American culture, all right? A new society, American society. None of the contributing groups are considered to be superior. No one is saying that descendants from Ireland, descendants from Latin America, or descendants from France, or the indigenous Indians, for example. Nobody is saying that these ethnic groups should be superior. Okay? No one is saying that the Chinese, the Japanese, the Koreans, the Russians who live in America should be inferior. No, there's nothing like that. What it says, though, is that all these different ethnic groups should combine to make one big culture that would satisfy the interests of all sorts of different ethnic groups living there. None of the contributing groups are considered to be superior. Each is considered to have contributed the best of its cultural characteristics to the creation of something new. Like I said, the new American culture.